Hello and welcome to Maverick Dreamers and Thinkers. I'm Chloe Cho. About a quarter of the world's population is locked down, and more are expected to join the club as a growing number of companies roll out mandatory work-from-home policies to help limit the risks of coronavirus outbreaks. As remote working becomes the new normal, how vulnerable are we to cyber attacks? After all, the world was far from prepared for such a drastic change in environment, while cyber criminals are not taking a break. The FBI has issued warnings of a rise in fraudulent crimes related to the virus scare, particularly by scammers posing as official health agencies. In fact, a hacking group tried to break into the World Health Organization recently. What are some of the best cybersecurity practices you can use to defend yourself against hackers? Let's find out from cybersecurity specialist and feminist Magda Shelley, Managing Director of Responsible Cyber. How are you doing, Magda?
I'm very good, Chloe. Thank you very much.
How are you practicing social distancing and remote working?
We have been remote working since several years. However, not on the long term. Like now, it has been several weeks that all the team is working from home. And it might be sometimes a little bit hard, even psychologically, to keep positive and keep going.
What are some of the biggest risks now that almost everybody is working from home, doing remote working?
It can lead to really disasters, and I'm being positive by using that word, I think. Companies are not prepared for remote working. That means that they do not have the right controls most of the time. And then suddenly, everyone needs to access their emails and their company's data from anywhere, from home, from another place where they are locked down. What does it mean? It means that the company needs to reduce the controls that they previously had, probably, and give those access to employees from, again, their own personal computer, for example.
Sometimes it's impossible to work with your company laptop at home because it either crashes or you can't log into whatever terminals that you have. So you simply give up and you use your own laptop. So what are the dangers there? Once you switch from your bulletproof, company laptop to your own personal PC.
The first thing that any business owner needs to think about is the most important asset for the company, which is data. So what happens to that data when you open the access to your employees from anywhere? So your email, they can download all your confidential information and customer lists, personal information to their own personal laptop. That's one. Of course, that doesn't reduce the risk as well of having malware on their own personal laptop, because how many people in general have antivirus, anti-malware on their personal laptop, keep the laptops updated, etc., etc. They don't even have that awareness and they don't know what to do. So first of all, you expose your data to laptops or to an environment that is not protected, and second, you actually have a very important risk that that data gets not only lost or stolen by internal or insider risks, which are the employees themselves, but also by external threat actors like just cyber criminals. So the situation is actually exposing the businesses for many additional risks comparing to working from an office where the company provides corporate laptops.
Given this environment where a lot of people are going crazy, especially if they have kids at home, if they're not in lockdowns, they go to a coffee shop, they go to a Starbucks, they'll use the free Wi-Fi there while having their cappuccino, frappuccino. But this is super dangerous, right?
It is, definitely, and especially on public Wi-Fis in cafes or even hotels. You actually are literally surfing on a network that's completely unprotected. So you're exposing everything that you do on that network. So if you're visiting some dating websites, actually a cyber criminal can see what you're doing. I'm giving an example that doesn't have anything to do with security, just to raise the awareness of people. But yes, anything like that, or anything that actually shows that you're entering your username and password. And if you're using unencrypted websites or websites that do not have the right security, all that traffic is visible to whoever can access that particular network. So it's the same you would literally post your home address to the whole network because you are actually publishing it on a website that is not secured, and you're shouting out to everyone, this is where I live.
Let's say I'm looking at vitamins on some website and somehow the next pop-up ads that you see, it's full of vitamins. And you feel like, wow, a lot of these services are not free. But in this case, when cyber criminals see what you're doing, they can really take advantage of your personal information.
Of course, and especially nowadays, we have seen so much increase in scams, phishing emails, where the main subjects are what? Are related to coronavirus or COVID-19. And people think that they will see updates or they will actually find interesting information about it, or even buy masks or buy the gels. But at the end, they are just installing malware on their laptops because they clicked on an attachment or on a link.
As companies big and small venture into uncharted territory in a global pandemic that's keeping hundreds of millions at home, small and medium enterprises are seen more vulnerable to cyber attacks. Many SMEs have not invested in robust cyber protection, therefore become easy prey. That said, many big conglomerates may have not prepared enough defenses to safeguard against cyber attacks. For companies, the vulnerabilities are exposed for the small and medium-sized companies rather than the big Fortune 500 companies because they might have far more encrypted emails and data services. So for a smaller company, a medium-sized company, how can they better protect themselves?
I would like first to come back to the big Fortune 500 and mentioning that they will have the right controls.
That's the idea, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. Some of them might have, but imagine the situation of a big company that doesn't have laptops for their own employees. And suddenly, overnight, everyone is asked to work from home. How will you do that? And that scenario in particular raises a lot of issues. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of employees across the world. So they are actually risks, and their situations or scenarios that they face nowadays are extremely complex and hard to manage in terms of cyber risk in particular. Coming back to the second point, which relates to small and medium businesses, of course, again, it comes down to how do you ensure visibility of your data and your assets. If I give, for example, access to my company's email outside of a corporate locked-down laptop, I need to be sure that employees cannot download my company information on their own laptop, which is possible with a control or a solution called data loss prevention, that they have a certain criteria that allows them to access that email. For example, that they have the right operating system, that their Windows is not from 1990, that they have an antivirus and an anti-malware, that they actually are aware of what they should and should not click on or open as attachment. And those are very high-level fundamentals.
A lot of companies, regardless of their size and scale, they're quite cheap, which is why they would give staff clunky computers and they would break down because they simply couldn't take the sheer size of video files, audio files, media assets. Obviously, when something is cheap, it's cheap for a reason, right?
I like that. Yeah, definitely.
Cheaper computers, less robust computers, even though the softwares might be installed, they're just not robust enough.
I would say this is a different topic. So basically, if the company is actually not investing in productivity and performance of their own employees, then we are not even able to move on and talk about cybersecurity because I guess it's on the bottom of the list of priorities. So, but there are virtual machines that help in case of lack of resources or hardware that is adapted to the company's activities. They are big companies providing virtual machines. If you have a small laptop but you need an extensive big power to run big media files, you can use certain virtual machines that have that power. The problem is not only about the hardware, but the problem is also with the internet service providers. You need to ensure that you have the right connectivity. So imagine all the people around the world connecting at the same time to streaming websites. what happens? It crashes because the capabilities of those services have not been planned to address the whole world population. Every service has a limit. It's technology, and we have certain capacities that we just plan as technological company providers. And then if that limit is just achieved, then the service cuts down.
As more people find themselves working remotely, the situation presents a potential goldmine for cyber criminals to take advantage of reduced cyber protection as personal devices are used for work. Plus, one needs to be vigilant of the surroundings and ensure that devices are kept in a secure place when not in use to prevent theft. And never use removable drives that you chance upon.
It is extremely dangerous, and you take something that you don't even know at all, and then you trust it and you put it in your laptop and just open and click on it. Whatever is there will be installed on your laptop. And a lot of times it is actually malware and we don't even know. People do not realize the importance on having certain tools on their personal laptop. So they might be already infected, and then they put a document on a USB and they give it to you. So they actually give you an infected file without even knowing about it.
We tend to run out of battery so often whenever we see a plug. People are constantly clamoring to charge their devices. And you say that it is absolutely important to use USB blockers when charging devices. Why?
So that allows you to block data transfer. So when you charge your phone, your computer, etc., just make sure that you actually use a socket rather than just plugging your USB cable anywhere. It can transfer data from your device to anywhere else. So again, you're trusting a third party, something else with your own phone. I mean, we have our lives on the phone. So why would you actually just plug it in anywhere and then expect that it will only charge? When you use the plug on your laptop from your phone to charge it, it asks you, do you allow that picture, for example, the pictures to be syncing to your laptop?
Right.
So you actually are doing the same with another device that you don't even have a control or visibility of.
And now that you are working from home and all of your staff members are also working from home, are you more vigilant about your surroundings? Because it does get a little bit tough. What do you do nowadays that you didn't do before?
Encouraging positivity and motivation. I think this is very important as well. So every day in the morning, I have a team meeting and just have that positivity and let's make it happen. It helps a lot because it's very important to also keep that social distancing, but keeping the motivation. That will reduce as well the insider threat, which is actually employees who gets just worried about their jobs, worried about the company, what's going to happen. If you don't have constant contact, then you don't know what's happening. And then it might affect your business not only from the productivity point of view, but as well from a cybersecurity point of view.
And now that a lot of people are bored, they may be working from their company laptops. But oftentimes when you surf, let's say you Google Brad Pitt because he looked really good in the movie you saw last night. And sometimes when you click on some link, those links can actually lead you to some bizarre porn site or adult websites. And I guess they could also be a target. How do you prevent that? Is it possible that whatever malware protection, spyware protection that is installed on a company laptop, they can detect and ward off these malicious sites from infiltrating your laptop?
So first of all, everyone should know that whatever you do on a company laptop is probably completely visible by the IT admins. So this perception that it's your laptop and whatever you do there, no one is aware of, it's completely wrong. So the IT and the team assigned, for example, tech support, etc., they can have access to everything. That's one. Second, the company's anti-malware and antiviruses are not 100% bulletproof. They will not detect every single malware because every day we have more than 300,000 new malware, so it's impossible. But third, companies have an additional level of control where basically they block websites that are categorized, like, for example, porn, etc.
Yeah, triple X, whatever.
Exactly. So they block those websites on purpose to limit the risk of being exposed not only to malware, but also to limit the risk of unauthorized activities, which shouldn't happen on a company laptop. But indeed, like you mentioned, people are bored now. They need to stay at home. So what do? In a lot of cases, they don't have as well a personal laptop, so they might use the corporate laptop to just surf online.
And what would you say are the things that people really need to exercise precaution, especially when you're in a public area? When you're dealing with confidential information, you're about to wire a lot of money. Do you simply use your mobile phone as a hotspot, however slow it might be?
I always advise two scenarios to solve that problem. One is either using your phone. Yes, it is better than using your public Wi-Fi. But two, which is the most secure way, and again, there's no 100% security, is to use VPN, virtual private network. So your communication is encrypted. But is it 100% secure? No, forget about it. Never happens. It reduces the risk. And you need to know where you download from the VPN. I mean, if you're using some free dodgy tool, well, you cannot be sure that your data is not exposed somewhere else. So again, always trust known brand and then try to find a VPN solution that has been reviewed or advised by industry's professionals, and you can at least trust in the service that that particular tool will provide.
What are some of the reliable brands that you can think of?
So I wouldn't like to advise one brand over the other because they are very different and depends what you would like to do. But I can say that some of the VPNs that are free, like Proton, and some similar ones are keeping privacy as a priority, and those are used by the security professionals again. So the best way, go on Google, which is very simple, and just try to find reliable articles on some very good cybersecurity magazines and see what information security professionals tell you about those VPNs, and then make your choice. I mean, the difference is either they are commercial, or either they're very expensive, or either they are completely free. And if they're completely free, you're probably paying it with your data, or they're using it to do some crypto mining, which is probably now still going on very well and, increasing even.
When it comes to VPN, if a service is far more expensive, is there a difference, or is it simply the security? What are you really paying for? We're so used to free things.
I definitely think there is a valid point. So I have seen companies paying a lot of money for certain solutions, but will those solutions actually be giving them the right security peace of mind? Most of the time, no. Why? Because when you deploy a solution or buy a solution online for your security, first, you need to ensure that it's adapted to what control you need. And second, you need to configure that. And most of the time, it's just, I'm going to buy the same one and just install it without understanding what do you really need. And second, nothing comes configured. You need to ensure that the settings, the configuration of whatever you install makes sense for you. Same comes with all the cloud platforms. I mean, people come to me and they say, oh, but the cloud service provider is taking care of the security. I'm like, why? Are you paying $1 million per month? No, you're not. So is it written in your contract? They take care of the security of the cloud, and you need to take care of the security of your data. So you have your part of responsibility.
As the COVID-19 crisis locks down one country after another, even banks are having to overturn a ban to permit remote execution of trades from home, changing the rules in compliance and controls to accommodate for this unprecedented situation. But how vulnerable are banks if a remote working parent is using the same home broadband with a remote schooling child whose unprotected device gets hacked while playing games? Is there a way to better protect the network at home? A solution is far easier than you think. Banks in the US, even Asia, they are doing a trial system where they can even get financial traders to trade from home, which is really dicey because you're using this home broadband, sharing it with your son who might be playing games behind the scenes. I guess that exposes a lot of risks for financial institutions.
It definitely does. The biggest problem that I see is that today's crisis came suddenly, so they were not prepared. If you're not prepared to go suddenly 100% remote, you will have exposure and you will find yourself in situations where you didn't have the time to deploy all the technology, you didn't prepare the right process as well, and your people might not be aware. So like you said, sharing the Wi-Fi at home with your kids, etc. If you already have employees that are aware about cybersecurity and cyber risk, they would implement the right fundamentals already within their home. For example, how many people change the password and username of their Wi-Fi at home? Whoever is listening to us today, have you changed your Wi-Fi password?
Why is that important? I never do that.
Because anyone can know by default password and username. So if I know your password, I can find out your network and then log into it.
Oh my God.
Find your IP address and then log into a network.
So since you have so many people, let's say it's a mom and dad working from home with their 3 kids, and in that kind of situation, which is really prevalent in a lot of countries now with all the lockdowns, and then you have one kid who's supposedly doing homework, you have another kid but actually gaming. And if that kid's computer gets hacked, then obviously the hacker could filter through the Wi-Fi network and get to the mom and dad's data, right?
Yes, there is a possibility, but that's why at least the companies with a minimum of security maturity implement a defense in depth. It means that there are several layers. There's no possibility or warranty or assurance that the laptop will never get compromised. It will get compromised, but it needs to be protected on several layers, as I mentioned. So one, there will be probably notification that there is a malware or there is something that happens with that particular laptop to the IT administrator or the security team, incident response team. They will react to that within a time frame that might be even 2 hours or 4 hours, depending on that. Then, of course, there's other controls that do not allow to compromise the whole network of the company because it's only one laptop that got compromised. There's other control that might limit any data infiltration or data that is actually copied from that computer somewhere else, etc. So it's several layers of controls that you need to implement to ensure that even if your laptop is compromised within the company, that it doesn't compromise the whole company's data and networks.
And last time I learned that social media platforms are just riddled with cyber crimes and cyber violence because it's the easiest way to send somebody a link, a download, and people do it, and which is why they get into trouble. Does that mean that when you're working from home, you're remote working using your company laptop, that it is not ideal to go onto some of these social networks, social platforms?
All social platforms present a risk. So definitely if you go on one of them and then you receive random messages with links or attachment and you click on them, you don't know if that other account has been hacked or not. You don't know what you're opening, what you're clicking on. And a very good example was a coronavirus map that was supposedly to actually show real-time the number of cases, but it was installing a malware and that was spread around social media. So again, cyber criminals are not taking a break nowadays. They're actually taking this as an opportunity, unfortunately for everyone else, but they're trying to actually take that opportunity and then attack every single person that is prone to it. And again, we are living in certain level of fear and panicking, and people want to know what's happening. They're scared about their job, so they click on whatever gives them hope. And again, sometimes it's malware.
Magda says there is an urgent need to educate people of the risks associated with working remotely and set up strict guidelines to mitigate cyber risks, given that 300,000 new malicious programs are popping up every day. In short, what's her key takeaway? Avoid using public Wi-Fi. Encrypt hard disks, sensitive data in emails. Only use company-issued devices and computers for work-related matters, and be vigilant of your surroundings. Ensure that devices are kept in a secure place when not in use. Never use removable drives that you chance upon. Engage USB blockers when charging devices in public, and never leave company-issued laptops and devices unattended in vehicles. Hope you had plenty to take away from this episode with Magda Celli, and thank you so much for your company. Stay tuned for another insightful episode next week. Hope you'll subscribe and share the podcast with a friend. Do give us a quick review, and if you're on social media, reach out to me and let me know what you think of the podcast. I'm Chloe Cho. Our dream continues right here on Maverick Dreamers and Thinkers. Please stay safe.